I bought gold. Or my elite friend told me that gold was the currency of the elite. You must get out of the rut that you've been in for these years of thinking you have to do these things in a certain way, and you're going to have to think of methods of an alternative currency, of an alternative lifestyle, and of another way to be able to survive, and oftentimes it's going to have to be on your own, Alex.
Well, Lindsey, I'll tell you, there's thousands of points that, are big flashing red arrows pointing in the direction that you and your source are talking about. But the 1.6 billion bullets bought by Homeland Security in the last year, since November of 2011, so a little more than a year, the buying thousands of armored giant black tanks, wheeled tanks, the digging in, the hardening of structures, the giant military brigades domestically, the TSA on the streets. I mean, they are gearing up like America is going to totally collapse because they're engineering it. They brag about it. A lot of what you're talking about, they publicly brag about because they know the public is sucking their thumbs, watching television, running around just giggling like lobotomized monkeys or something. What do you expect to happen to the general thumb-sucking public as everything collapses, just begging on their bellies to the government? I mean, this is just the state is God is what we're about to be taught.
That's exactly what I expect the middle class to do. When your children start crying because they're hungry, and you haven't listened to what my elite friends have told me personally to do, and your children are crying, you are going to bow to the New World Order. I wish I could say it otherwise, but I don't know how to put it. There's so many of you that won't have a mindset change. And if you listen to what these people are telling me, you can spare yourself great heartaches. You don't have to stay awake at night. You don't have to look for black helicopters. Folks, please don't worry. You remember last year when I had 2012, the beginning of the end, and I said that one of the agendas of the elite was stress and pressure. And I said that I contacted a person in the medical field, and I said, what happens whenever major pressure is placed on the human brain or human being? And they said, Chaplain, worry will shut the brain down. And I went back and I said, that's exactly why my elite friend told me that they are going to inject. You're going to have a terrorist attack next week. This is going to happen next week. That's going to happen. Physical cliff. Do you realize that this is nothing in the world but a scare tactic to get you to shut your brain down so you can't think about the things that you really need to be doing over these next years, a short period of time that you've got to get ready for the inevitable?
Amazing. Just incredible. Lindsey, I know you've got to go in about 3 or 4 minutes to do another interview, and I appreciate you giving us the exclusive on the radio yesterday and spending the last 50 minutes with us or so here today. In the 3 or 4 minutes you've got left, give out the number one more time for what their plan is and then how to protect for it, the two new DVDs.
Toll free, 1-888-799-6111, or on the web, prophecyclub.com. Oh, you can go. This is so amazing. A man in the United Kingdom set up a website for me because I was refused, told I couldn't have one. Go to LindseyWilliams.net, not .com, but .net if you wish. Now, please, we have put together 2 hours and 50 minutes of solutions. Nothing but solutions. No hellfire and damnation. No scare tactics. Nothing but solutions. We've never done this before. You can spare yourself great heartache. Alex, you can stay in business. I can stay in business. Remember, there was only about a 3% that bucked the king, and as a result, the American Revolution became what it is. We are going to win. But in the meantime, you've got to know what these elite are telling you. Why do the elite tell me these things? They tell me for the sake of me being able to protect myself because of the respect they had for me years ago. But, Alex, the elite are out there. You said it a moment ago. You put it so correctly. You said they're actually laughing at us. That's exactly what's happened. I'll tell you somebody that they're laughing at more than anybody. There have been so many Christian prophets over the past year or two that have given prophets in the name of the Lord that hasn't taken place. And I'm sorry to have to tell you this, pastors, but the elite are actually laughing at the churches of America today. I mean, literally giggling at you because your prophets have been wrong. And you haven't raised up and done anything about it like moral majority did years ago. So, Alex, to the best that I can say is, please, 888-799-6111, prophecyclub.com. And, Alex, I consider it a privilege to be able to tell your audience what my elite have told me in order to spare themselves great heartache. You can.
Well, undoubtedly they're planning to implode things. They've done it all over the world. It's their formula. They brag about it. None of this is really even secret. But your source puts it very well and kind of gives us exactly what they're thinking. So I'm glad they're there. And Lindsey, thank you so much for coming on with us. We'll talk to you again soon.
Set that spiritual house in order first. Alex, thank you. Lord bless. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, Lindsey, again, thank you so much for the time. Wow. Well, there goes Lindsey Williams. Unfortunately, I know who his source is, and I know that it is a high-level globalist, at least in the past, who has a lot of contacts. I personally have moved 20 miles outside Austin to the edge of the country. I have personally talked to billionaires, globalists, you name it, and they've all left the country or moved to rural redoubts. They say it won't be enough to be 20 miles outside the city with what they're planning. But they're getting the total collapse of society ready. They're trying to get their authoritarian system in place. The good news is we're fighting back at every level. And there are good people throughout private life, government life, everything. And people are pushing back against the takeover of the churches with the 501c3 and with the clergy response teams and the, quote, consultants that are in all the major denominations now saying if you want your money from the church hierarchy, whether it's Methodist, Baptist, Mormon, Catholic, I mean, governments are in there, and they're giving them faith-based initiative money. And we have seen the Catholics come out and say we're not going to pay for abortions, and Obama says yes you will. The First Amendment says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. It's illegal. There is no jurisdiction. But going back to the World Council of Churches and then the National Council of Churches, who set up the UN, the Rockefellers, who set up the NAFTA and GATT, the Rockefellers, who just merged the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, who set up the World Council of Churches, the Ford Foundation, Rockefellers. They run it all. And it's incredible. I mean, they have steered the course of this nightmare system. And they set it up going back around 100 years ago, around 1910 or so, a little over 100 years. Wow, time's flying. And they came into the churches and they said to these big denominations, we'll give you investments, we'll give you endowments, we'll donate billions of dollars to you every decade, and that was billions back then, if you will change your doctrine. And see, you couldn't just have state-run media overnight. It took time to take over the media. You couldn't just have globalist-run religion overnight, like the Soviet Union, where they just take over and then they arrest all the Orthodox preachers, and that's the end of it. And then have state-run churches. It took time, but now Methodist, Episcopalian, you name it, because I have friends, I have family, they all go to church. And part of my family's Methodist, the others are Baptist. And I talk to everybody. I mean, I've had friends bring me from big Baptist churches in Austin where they say, you're not going to criticize Obama and you're not going to talk about politics. Even at church dinners, they're telling members don't talk about politics because we're not allowed to talk about politics at church, claiming that that's separation of church and state. Separation of church and state means the state has no jurisdiction over religion, not the other way around. So they tricked them in the last 70 years or so to sign 501c3s, 501c4s, there's others, becoming charitable organizations that are government controlled. And they did it by buying off the leadership of the churches. And they are now pulling, in Methodist churches, the crosses out. They are now pulling them out of Episcopalian. They are now pulling them out of some of the Catholic churches. It's on. It's on. And they're saying, well, that might offend people. And we don't worship Jesus. And whether you're a Christian or not, folks, even if you're an atheist out there, state-run religion, 501c3, how many billions? I haven't checked. Type in, it was like 50 billion a few years ago that Bush was giving out a year. Guys, search this real quick here before we go to Ron Paul. Faith-based initiative yearly spending. It was $50 billion the year Bush left office. I want to know what it is now. Because last time I read $50 billion going to your churches where they get the new vans, the new bus, they get the widescreen TVs, the pastor goes, even at small churches. A lot of unpaid pastors are now getting $50,000 a year. They might have a flock of 30, 40 people that come, old ladies they visit. And there it is. Obama stimulus pours millions into faith-based groups. That's Politico. That's a complete whitewash. That's 120,000 sent to local